this is Chase Utley, and this is the Phillies Show.
Hey, everybody. Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zalecki. Phillies Show brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Hope everybody is doing well. Eagles won.
I bet they are.
I bet they are. Everybody's in a great mood. We're recording this on Monday, but we're posting it on Tuesday because we said, let's be honest. If we get up early on Monday morning, people are not going to be tuning into the Phillies Show. They want to talk Eagles. So we're posting this on Tuesday morning, but what a game on Sunday. Holy moly. I watched it at home. The Saquon run in the first, that first monster run to open up the game. I'm just losing my mind, screaming, my wife's screaming. My kids are looking at us like we're nuts. It was a lot of fun. Where did you guys watch the game?
I watched it with my family, my daughters, my wife. We had a good time. Ate some ribs, and yeah, it was just Barkley right out of the chute. Just makes that statement. It was a really fun game, and like I mentioned last time, there's nothing more fun than a playoff run in Philadelphia. I don't care what sport it is. It captivates the community, and consider this community captivated.
And no doubt. I mean, listen, I know I've been a Eagles fan my whole life, and Phillies sports fan. Just an awesome thing. I was actually coming back from the Phillies fantasy camp. I was down in Clearwater, a little cold there, but it got warmed up the last day.
Good.
We had a great time, but I was watching part of the game in the Admirals Club at the airport in Tampa, and then I worked my Wi-Fi, finally figured out my Wi-Fi so I could watch the rest of the game. You should have heard some of the fans there was nothing but Eagles and Phillies fans on that flight back from Tampa. I mean, the chants were going, E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles. They were spelling it properly. It was nice. It was nice to see them spell it properly. And every time, actually heard a couple Eagles Fly songs when Barkley and Jalen Hurts were going to work. But what a special, special game. My daughter, actually, my family actually watched the game at my brother's house, but my daughter went to Broad Street. My daughter, Sophia, went to Broad Street and was in that, she saw her on her Instagram and stuff, but she went crazy out there. And she said it was absolutely nuts. She said she saw at least 10 or 12 people have to go to the hospital because there was some shit going down over there, man. But it's awesome. The Eagles are going back to the Super Bowl, man, and they're playing the Chiefs. And boy, oh boy, is this going to be a game of revenge.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Awesome.
The Eagles are a hell of a franchise.
Oh yeah.
What's this? 4 Super Bowls and amount of years, and since the turn of the century, whatever you call it, 8 conference championship games. I mean, it starts at the top with their ownership and their commitment to excellence. One thing, and they're not infallible. They have a down season now and then, but man, they rebound quick, and they are good to great often. And it's hard to do that in pro sports. And one thing I think is important to their success, and one of the things I respect about the Eagles, obviously starts at the top with their leadership. But when they make a mistake, they are very decisive in removing themselves and excising that mistake and moving on from it. Make a decision, move on from it. It happens. And they rebound quickly. And, you look, and I think obviously I'm very happy for the coach, Nick Sirianni. He seems like a really great connector of people. I mean, a year ago, there was a lot of debate if he was the right guy. And the franchise that makes that is very decisive, decided to stay with him and surround him with some different voices and some different assistant coaches, the coordinators. And he has shined, and a good leader can delegate and be, not take it personal when you bring in people around him. And he's done a really great job with that. Not feel slighted when you bring in people around him. And the importance of assistant coaches in pro sports is so important. And those 2 coordinators have done a good job. And this franchise with their continued excellence. And when they have a down year, they bounce back quick. Really, hell of a franchise, guys.
Yeah, and it starts at the top with Jeff Lurie, and for him to have made that decision to bring Howie back and to sort of set him aside and not let him go completely when Chip Kelly took over and screwed things up, for him to be able to bring him back and have the wherewithal and say, you know what, we were probably better off without with him, and to bring him back a better version of how he came back, and he came back with in spades, man, and great decision by Jeffrey Lurie. Howie doing a hell of a job as a GM. Todd?
Yeah, it's gonna. I was gonna say it's fun. You think back to where they were last year and how people like Jimmy mentioned Nick Sirianni, and it's the importance of just letting things play out. And they thought they had a good team, and just let it play out. It doesn't. You're not locked into losing if you keep this guy. It kind of reminds me of the Phillies, the situation they're in right now a little bit. Like everybody's down on the Phillies. I shouldn't say everybody's down on the Phillies, but there's a lot of like they can't win with this group. They needed to go make a big move, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think the next 2 weeks are just going to be so much fun. You think of like all the small businesses that are going to be cranking out like Eagles themed cookies and cupcakes, and everybody's going to be all Eagles out. If you're a sporting goods store, you're like, oh my God, this is a godsend for us. It's just so much fun. The kids are going to have dress up days at school. My son went to school today in his Saquon Barkley jersey that he wore yesterday during the game. I'm like, you got to wear it again. You gotta wear it again, dude. You gotta wear it again to school. So it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I got I don't have any, I'm a Packer. I grew up a Packers fan, of course. So we talked about this in the show, but so this is my Eagles gear. I got this Federal Donuts chicken drumstick football helmet t-shirt I picked up at Federal Donuts a couple years ago. So that's my nod to my hometown, my new hometown of Philadelphia. And it was my wife's from Delco, so she was losing her mind yesterday watching the game, screaming at the top of her lungs. I was right along with her. I love to see Philly win. It's great. It's so much fun. So, but people come here also for some Phillies talk, so I think we should give them some Phillies talk. Did you real quick before we get into some audience questions, fan questions? MLB Pipeline on Friday released the top 100 prospects list. Andrew Painter, number 8. Aiden Miller, number 27, Justin Crawford, number 64, and Eduardo Tait, number 93. So we've had a lot of good prospect talk. Over the offseason, we had Phillies GM Preston Mattingly back when he was farm director on in late October. He talked a lot about those guys. We had the new farm director, Luke Merton, on in November. Talked a lot about those guys. And we had Jonathan Mayo from MLB Pipeline earlier this month. Talk a lot about those guys. So if you missed those episodes, go back and check those out. Those were a lot of fun. And when we come back, we're going to be answering your questions.
As an athlete, I care about what I put in my body, especially when it comes to protein. But can we also get some protein that tastes good? Come on, it's 2025.
Todd, that's why this podcast is sponsored by Orgain. Orgain believes real nutrition has the power to make a real difference in people's lives, and it tastes so good. Orgain's new 30-gram complete protein shakes offer protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without any added sugar. They're also an excellent source of premium ultra-filtered protein with all 9 essential amino acids.
FT loves Orgain, and you'll often see it on the desk in the studio as we fuel up before and during the show. We love it for muscle support, recovery, and more.
Remember, there are no quick fixes when it comes to your health. If you want more protein, give Orgain 30-gram protein shakes a try. Head to Orgain.com/FOUL30 and use code FOUL30 for 30% off your order. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use the code FOUL30 for 30% off.
We're back. We got questions really about all sorts of different things. Roster battles, 2026 roster look, make out. So I want to kind of start with this one. I got a few questions about Kyle Schwarber. This is from Steven on Blue Sky, and then Anthony Zorzi on X kind of had similar questions. Do you think the Phillies will try and extend Kyle Schwarber this season or move on after the year? Anthony said, could the Phillies use the Anthony Santander contract as a starting point for a Schwarber extension. Now, Santander got 5 years, $92.5 million. He's 2 years younger than Kyle Schwarber. So I don't know if how much that would actually relate or not. But do we have any thoughts on the Phillies maybe this spring or this season extending Kyle Schwarber? Or do you think with where they are with their payroll being over the fourth luxury tax, is it more of a wait and see approach after the season's over to kind of see where everything stands?
What do you think, Rube?
I think it's a wait and see. I mean, I'd love to sign the guy, and if they can get him done at a reasonable number, I think that they'll consider it. But I think the concern with them would be the length of the contract and also how it might affect their overall budget as far as the luxury tax and such. So I got to believe that they would certainly consider keeping Kyle here. He means so much to the team, but I think it's going to have to be one of those deals where it's going to have to be short enough for them to make sure that they maximize his ability to contribute to the team. I know he's just the DH and not having to play the outfield now. And so it's a dicey one. It'll be a tough one. And a lot of it depends on how much Kyle Schwarber wants to stay around. I mean, if he can do a deal or they can do a deal, a Zach Wheeler-esque type length, right? That's only 3 years or something like that. Maybe so. Otherwise, I think they'll just wait it out and then, see what happens at the end of the year.
I mean, him being a DH with that bat speed, I think he's got good years left in him. But where the payroll is, where the kind of overall age of that core is, you got another kind of, people might not believe, but JT's a tough call too. You got JT coming up on free agency
Really
after
tough.
this year. Kyle Schwarber, free agent after this year.
Ranger.
Both all tough calls. I mean, I think Ranger, where his age is, and I think he's going to kind of test it and see where his value is and if he can make a big score. But those other two guys, where they are on the age curve, maybe one more contract for those guys. And even though JT might have slipped in a little bit of an area here or there last year, I mean, we heard it from Caleb Coughlin last week, how valuable he is to the strength of the team, which is their pitching staff, how much he brings to them. So two really tough calls there in terms of what they're going to do. And I think I don't feel anything coming in spring training. I think it's probably more of a see how the season unfolds and see what happens. But I'm sure they're pondering both cases. There's a lot to think about there because both guys really offer a lot.
Yeah, it's that fine line between resetting and retooling and staying with the guys that you feel can help you. And there's three guys that you mentioned right out of the chute that are sort of foundational players. Tough calls.
Yeah, I think going into this season, it's not like make or break in the sense of like the window's completely shut, of course, but you want to keep your options open. And again, they're over the fourth luxury tax. So it just wouldn't make much sense to me to see two contract extensions this spring or, not knowing how the season is going to unfold. But that was a question that Steve Garrison on Facebook had. Of the three free agents on the Phillies following the 2025 season, who do you think gets re-signed or do they all walk? So put on your prognostication caps. If you had to rank them in order of least likely to be back in 2026.
Ooh.
Ranger.
Really?
Least likely?
Ranger.
Did I say least likely? Okay, yeah. Least likely. Okay, least likely. Yeah.
I'm with you on that, Jim. Ranger, I agree.
Yes.
I think he's going to look for his big score and the way the prices of pitching are and where they are on the luxury tax. I could see him being the least likely to be back in 26.
I forgot how I asked the question. Least likely to do 100%. Yeah, Ranger to me, with Painter coming up, with Luzardo under control for another year.
Yeah.
That's if you can't bring everybody back, and we love pitching, but that's probably the guy least likely. Okay, so of JT and Schwarber, who do you think is the most likely to come back, the most likely to come back if you had to pick on JT or Schwarber? They don't really have anybody ready to
You
step
go,
up.
Jim, and I'll follow.
Well, I don't know, but I think Schwarber, he was a 4-year, $79 million deal, right?
Yes.
I think he could seek the same deal on the open market and maybe get it. And if JT would like do maybe a 2-year deal, depending on how this year goes, and I don't know if he would, I could see them doing something there. It's just a really tough. I don't know how it's going to shake out. I wish I could give you a really firm answer. Right. I think there's a chance both of them are back in 26. But I also think there's a chance if Schwarber keeps doing what he's doing, he could find what he wants on the open market.
I think both of them are high-level importance guys as far as the team is concerned in different ways. Obviously, Schwarber with his performance and his leadership, but then when you talk about catching, it's still, catching is still the most important position player on the field without question in my mind. Especially with the strength of the team being the pitching, as you mentioned, Todd. I would say that if I were the GM, the person that I would pursue most importantly would be JT, unless I knew I had a backup plan, which I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's a player there readily available. Marchand, can you trust him to play 100 games in the major leagues and be healthy? You cannot right now. This guy's JT's too important to the overall picture, even though the offensive production is not there. I think that position is just so important. I love Kyle Schwarber. I think he brings so much more to the table as far as his leadership is concerned, as well as his production, obviously power production. But and I'd love to keep them both. But I think if I was going to rank them in importance for the team as it stands today, I would go JT first and then Schwartz.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, Ruben, just because they don't have anybody, like you said. We talk about bench battles this spring. That got a couple questions about that, and people are like, well, Marchand is probably the favorite, right, over Garrett Stubbs to be the backup catcher. Marchand's out of options. Stubbs has an option, but Marchand, guy gets hurt all the time. Can he even get out of camp healthy? We don't know that, so it's not like that's a lock. 100% lock situation. The guy gets banged up a lot. So yeah, I mean, with JT there, who's going to catch if he doesn't come back? Now that you're looking at the free agent market, does anybody can be better than him? If you don't, so I agree with you guys there.
And if anybody thinks that Taid can be ready by 2026, that would be a no.
Yes. Well, we go back and listen to the Jonathan Mayo one, because I remember asking Jonathan Mayo about Eduardo Taid, and he said that's a guy who's, what is he, 18, 19? He's years away from probably leading a pitching staff. So down the road, not 2026. This is from Jay Sequella on Blue Sky. Let's get into this because we did get into Stubbs Marchand. Who wins the bench jobs? Stubbs Marchand get one. Edmundo Sosa is a lock for the top infielder. And then you have Wilson, Rojas, Clemens, Kennedy, Cal Stevenson for the last two spots. Do we have any thoughts on that?
Well, Rojas is, I think, going to be there.
Rojas, yep.
Had a great winter ball season down in the Dominican Republic. It's great to see him play winter ball. That's so old school. If you talk to people that extended their careers and improved as players by going to winter ball, and it was a great move because when they first broke up in October and they had their postseason press conference, he was going to spend time in Clearwater working on a bunch of stuff, and all of a sudden he was assigned to a winter ball team. Great move because when I look at him, to me, I think he needs time in the batter's box. Lots of time in the batter's box to work on pitch recognition, etc. And sounds like he did a really good job down there. I think he was the rookie of the year. So I see him being on the bench, and with Kepler in left field, maybe a right-handed bat might be the guy. Maybe Wes Wilson, but I don't know. Clemens is an awfully good bench player. He can play a few different positions. He's sort of like gives you some instant spark. So it'll be something to watch in spring training. But they have some Kennedy and Stevenson. Remember that like early September, like it was like night after night. Wilson had a big night. Kennedy had a big night. Clemens had a big night. Stevenson had a big game defensively and offensively. So they all can do different things for you. It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Clemens being on options is a significant, development or whatever, issue.
I like Clemens and I like Weston Wilson. I like that combination of guys. That said, how many guys can you have on the bench? And so that's the concern. I mean, I do believe that Johan will make the club. Can you have 5 guys on the bench? Yes, you can, unless you go with 12 pitchers.
Yeah, you could go with one less pitcher, but
unless you go with one less pitcher, and I don't know if that'll happen. But with this rotation, if it comes out of spring training healthy, you can talk about a team that can actually rack up some serious innings. I don't know if it'll happen in the beginning. So, I mean, these are all great problems to have, man. The better players, I think the fact that Cody Clemens does not have an option probably sort of helps him. And I think the fact that Weston Wilson does still have an option kind of hurts him.
What about the left-handed, right-handed aspect of that? Cody hitting left-handed, and you have Kepler and left.
That's why Dave Dombrowski makes the big bucks, baby.
That's right.
I think at the outset, you want to. I always believe in trying to keep all your assets, and if you have to, and I think that they're just going to let Kepler hit against righties and lefties anyway. They are going to platoon in center field, I believe. So if it's a tough left-hander, you'll see Rojas play center. So there's some protection there, I guess, especially if he's swinging the bat well, hopefully. But I like to keep all my assets early in the season, man. If somebody were to go down, I like to be able to have Weston Wilson. I like to be able to have Cody Clemens around because he has value. Play third, play first. He can play corner outfields. Keep all your assets, man. And sometimes you got to be selfish, and it may not be the greatest thing for Weston Wilson's career, but the fact that he's got an option, I think, is really helpful for them. Yeah,
Clemens
for the organization.
Right. Clemens and Buddy Kennedy are out of options. Rojas, Cal Stevenson, Weston Wilson obviously do have options. Johan Rojas, I looked up his winter ball numbers in the Dominican, batting .295, 382 on base, 390 slug. 23 stolen bases, no caught stealings.
No caught stealings.
Yeah,
Holy
6
smokes.
doubles. Yeah, 6 doubles, a home run, 8 RBIs. So for how much stock do you put in those numbers? Dominican winter ball. I mean, it's better obviously than him hitting 180. But I guess the
level of pitching is probably between AA and AAA, somewhere in that zone. As far as this overall talent of pitching, the overall play is probably right around AAA level overall play. But you will see a lot of major league players, especially during the playoffs. You'll start seeing more major league players filter in because they want to get some work in before they go and put themselves in a position to be ready for spring training. So, hey, listen, anytime you can put up those kind of numbers at any level is a good thing. Right. Sounds like he's making contact. Sounds like he's getting on base, and sounds like he's stealing some bags. And the fact he's got no caught stealing, it's pretty cool.
He's running. Yeah, this is kind of playing off for Johan Rojas. Let's stick on that theme. Rob Thompson last year let Nick Castellanos start all 162 games. Rarely pulled him from the game. But with Rojas figuring to start most games on the bench, could he be used more as a defensive replacement / pinch runner and have Nick taken out of the games? Marsh, Rojas, Kepler would be a really good defense for protecting a lead. That's from Andrew McFeeders on X. Do we like that idea? I love that idea. I love taking a guy out late. Charlie did that beautifully late in the 2008 season. You saw Eric Bruntlett out there in left field for Pat Burrell. You saw it, all the time, and I thought it worked great. I would like to see more of that, quite frankly, in 2025 from the Phillies if Johan Rojas makes the team.
It would be a good role for him. We've kind of talked about that over the last few months. We see that as a role for him. 5th outfielder, defensive specialist. Yeah. That type of a player can really add value to a good team, to a sort of playoff caliber team that the Phillies are.
Yeah, and I think Castellanos has done a great job of working himself into being as good an outfielder as he is today compared to where he was, 2 or 3 years ago. He's worked his ass off to be very serviceable out there. But anytime you can add somebody with the, when you can put the alignment of Rojas in center, Marsh in right, and Kepler in left, that's going to cover some ground. That's going to get some outs for you as a especially deep in the game when you have a lead. I like that idea, and I think it's something that I think Rob Thompson's going to, if he's going to do it, I think he sort of has to set the tone early in the season about it, and early in spring training. And Rob Thompson's very good about communicating these things. Nick may not like it, but overall, it may preserve him a little bit, may give him some rest, may be able to eat up. So I know he wanted to play every game last year, but it takes its toll. And as you get older, playing every day does take its toll. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him getting a breather.
Yeah, I think if anybody can have that conversation with Nick, I think Rob can.
Correct.
He can make that happen. Here's a couple Bryson Stott questions. And I think, why in the world do we hear so many rumors about Bryson Stott batting leadoff? Schwarber, Harper, and Turner all make way more sense. Do you guys still think that we see that? That's from Slim on X. That's something we've talked about as an idea. If Bryson Stott has a good season and kind of gets things turned around, and we've kind of, I don't know if we've fueled that fire or added fuel to that fire, but that's something we've all talked about. What do you guys think? Why do we hear so much about Bryson Stott? How about this? Why do we think Bryson Stott would make some sense in that leadoff spot if they're going to adjust the lineup?
The reason we hear a lot about it is, the manager has publicly said during the winter meetings and again in October when they had their breakup news conference that he would consider moving Schwarber out of the leadoff hole. And previous to that, he has often said that he thinks eventually Bryson Stott could be a pretty good leadoff man. So I think that is the reason why it's been speculated that he could be that guy. But, they have other options, sticking with Schwarber. Trey Turner could hit there, but with the left, right, and the left, right, and left, right throughout the lineup, there is, it makes some sense to consider Stott there, but he's got to make some adjustments. He previously was pretty good selective hitter. It wasn't as good in that area last year. Didn't hit fastballs as much, didn't make as much contact. If he can improve in those areas, he might make some sense there, but there's got to be some improvement. I just think it's the lineup thing is in flux, and it's going to be a big storyline in spring training about how Rob Thompson addresses it and who he puts where.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of it depends on Bryson Stott's progress. Let me just say this: in my opinion, we have not seen the best version of Bryson Stott, or not even close. In my opinion, I think this guy's a much better hitter than we've seen. I think he can contribute and do a lot of things that I think, frankly, that leadoff guy can do, and I think he would be perfectly set up for that. That said, he's got to perform. He's going to have to do it, and if he does, and Rob Thompson does experiment with it in the early part of the season or in spring training, he's going to have to perform, because at some point, if he doesn't, then they may go back to him. I don't even know if he's going to try him, but that's my thought, that he might be doing that, and I think it just makes it a team better overall because of the left-right thing and the fact that you got a lot of speed at the top. People forget that Bryson Stott can steal 30 bags, and you got another guy behind him who could steal another 30 or 40 bags. I mean, you're talking about, and then if you flip the lineup and you have Johan Rojas hitting into the 9-hole, holy smokes, you got some real speed back to back to back. And so that creates a lot of action on the field that I think, and a dimension that the Phillies sort of need. And not just the power that they will provide.
Few more here, but first I want to say Ruben's got it sporting the Philly Show T-shirt.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, he is.
Let me get this out of the way.
Yeah, there you go. Show it off, Ruben. Show off the guns.
Sweet. Oh, and the pipes.
And the pipes. Yeah, go to if you want a Philly Show T-shirt, they're awesome. 47 brand makes them. Go to thephillyshow.com. You can pick your out We will ship it out to you, have it in time for spring training down in Clearwater for opening day for sure. A couple more. So reportedly, the Phillies were one of a host of teams that watched Max Scherzer throw at Cressy Sports Performance down in Florida last week. So I got a couple questions on that. Debbie C on X, do you see the Phillies taking a chance on Scherzer? Phil's fan, DLR on Threads. What do you think it would take to bring Scherzer to Philly on a one-year deal, and what luxury tax implications would that create? Real quick on the luxury tax implications, because they're over the fourth luxury tax, any dollar amount they would sign Max Scherzer to would be taxed at 110%. So you sign him to a 1 year, $10 million deal. The payroll tax or the tax would be what is that? 11 million. So you'd be paying Max Scherzer essentially
21 million.
The 21 million essentially would be geared towards Max Scherzer. He would only get 10 of that. The league would get 11 million of that, but that's the luxury tax implications of signing Max Scherzer. What do we think about it? Jim, you mentioned really early in the offseason, you said, I don't know, is this crazy? How about Max Scherzer being a late inning, one inning guy? How about doing it a la John Smoltz?
Yeah, I love. There's a lot of parts of it that I really love. I love his makeup and his toughness and his competitiveness, and I think he could take the ball for one inning and go out and blow some cheese and maybe have some success in late inning leverage. I'm not sure he'd want to do it. He might want to start. I don't know how much money he wants. That changes the whole thing, the way you kind of framed that luxury tax, what the commitment would be. But there's a lot to like about Max Scherzer. I'm not surprised they looked at him. People kind of get all at Twitter. They scouted somebody. Well, that's their job. They employ dozens of scouts. They have scouts living really all over the globe. I bet they probably have 4 scouts who live within an hour of, the facility that he threw in Florida. So you go take a peek at him, gather a little intelligence, see what happens. There's, like I said, a lot I like about it, but I just don't know with that luxury tax. And I don't think he's coming here for 1.8 million. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
I love the idea of throwing him in there for one inning, and a lot of it will depend on whether the Phillies feel that he can medically do it and whether the player wants to do it. I mean, obviously, how important is it for him to be playing just to play, or is he wanting to play for a team that's going to win? And I think that is where Max Scherzer's head is going to have to be at. I mean, he's got his money. He's got generational money. It's not an issue about that. For me, it's an issue about where he wants to play and what role he wants to play it in. And you never know. I mean, the Phillies have a great team. Do they have the Dodgers? No, but they're close and they're good. They don't have the depth that the Dodgers have, particularly in the pitching staff. But the quality is there, and the quality of players is there. And it's going to be a contending team. There's no question in my mind. Does he want to go to a contending team and be a closer? Or what, what does Max Scherzer want to do? But anytime you got a guy like that who's a champion and pitches like a champion and posts like a champion, you got to consider it.
Yeah.
I would make a run at his ass if I was the GM.
Well, let me ask you this.
But that's not my money, and it's not my team.
What would be your number for him that you would, given where the Phillies are on the tax? How much would and how delicate is that? Because you don't want to insult him, right?
Right.
Don't want to insult him, but I think if it is indeed a contract based on him being a closer, I'd give him a $10 to $12 million base, and then for games finished, depending on how many games he finishes, I give him incentives to get him to where the elite closers are. Well, who are the elite closers? They're between 15 and 20 million, right? So, I mean, I would escalate it to somewhere between 15 and 20 million as far as his incentives are concerned.
I don't think they can do that.
I don't think they can either. But
where they are on the tax,
that's what I'm thinking. That wouldn't be embarrassing for him.
Yeah, it's a fine line. And how about if he did the old Roger Clemens thing and tried to, just keep throwing, stay in shape, March, April, May, June, and get, work on his conditioning, whatever he's got to work on, and come in and give somebody 4 months of a hired gun. That might be pretty big X factor for somebody.
So that's sort of what we did with Pedro Martinez. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Justin Verlander, I think he got just 1 year, $15 million from the Giants. So
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't know how much that,
that might impact him.
Max Scherzer might be looking at that number, because
Yeah,
Verlander did not have a good year last year. Scherzer was, didn't pitch much, but all right, 2 more.
Makes me wonder about the Mets. The Mets,
Yeah.
I know he was there and it didn't really work, but
Different vibe
1
there now.
year, I mean, they're gonna, their rotation is not they could use help in their rotation. It's a team I would watch. I don't know about now, but if Scherzer wanted to do that, Pedro Roger Clemens thing and become a hired gun, that would be an interesting little subplot during the season. No,
and I think the Phillies have that guy in Andrew Painter. If he stays healthy, that's their guy, and it's a much cheaper version. So, but if he's going to be considering doing a different role in the back end, and the Phillies are not feeling comfortable about who's closing out games, who knows? You never know.
That would be fun. That'd be fun. So 2 more. This guy asked me this question several times, so I have to answer. Russell Riggins on Facebook wants to know any theme to my baseball cards behind me. Real quick, Russell, the cards directly behind me are mostly cards from the 80s and like the early to mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Players I either liked a lot when I was a kid. So you have a lot of Robin Yount, Paul Molitor's, Brewers fan. Yeah, I have a lot of players that I've come in contact with over the years. So Mike Schmidt, Larry Boa, Larry Anderson. I have a lot of those cards on the wall behind me. Just like random, but I love Jeffrey Leonard when I was a kid. I don't know why he did play for the Brewers for 1 year, but
And he's from Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's right. And the one flap down move when he homered, I mean, come on, dude, that was pretty cool. I used to imitate that all the time in the backyard. And then the wall right here on my left, all Phillies cards. So all Phillies cards from the 80s, 90s, and then I got cards from my first year on the beat, 2003 through up to like a couple years ago. So that's the one on the wall. So have some. It's just funny, like looking at some of the random ones. Obviously a lot of Chase Utley's, Jimmy Rounds, but then you have like guys like Steven Susdorf. Remember him? He played for the Phillies for 1 year years ago, and so that's basically the gist, the theme of the wall behind me. All big leaguers. The wall to my left.
2 things, real quick. I gotta say something about that. One, I can't believe I'm not on your wall because I did play in the early 90s. Thanks a lot. I see how I rank. Number 1. And number 2, Jeff Leonard. Jeff Leonard's from Philly. Quick story. The Giants used to play the Stanford Cardinal before the season started or sometime in the middle. And I don't know how we made that arrangement. But can you imagine being the San Francisco Giants and going to play the Stanford Cardinal in an exhibition game before the season started? They were so pissed off they had to do that. They would come and play us. They would come play us at Sunken Diamond. Jeff Leonard, they were all probably pretty upset, but Jeff Leonard apparently, or not apparently, was probably not that happy. He hit a ball off of Jeff Ballard, who's a left-hander who pitched in the big leagues for a while for a couple of different teams, Baltimore and Pirates for one. But he was our number 1 starter. He threw him a little slider, and Jeff Leonard hit a ball that went onto the soccer field. I mean, in left center field, and it took him 1.5 minutes to get around the bases with the one flap down. It was hilarious. And we were looking at each other on the bench going, that's the funniest thing I've seen. Anyway, I had to give it to Jeffrey Leonard. I had to give that story.
That is, the truth of Ruben is this: is if I had a Ruben Amaro card, it would be on this wall. I went through I had boxes of cards from my childhood, and for some reason, I did not have a single Ruben Amaro card because I've got multiple Larry Anderson cards on the wall, Larry Boa cards, guys that I covered throughout the years behind me and on the wall.
Well, if it was tops, if you didn't get it, first year, then they discontinued me. After I was supposed to be a rookie of the year in my first week of the season in '92, and they said, screw this guy. We're not making any more of his cards.
Oh my God. I got to find one of those. I got to find one. If I get it, it'll be on the wall. And last one is, this is from Dylan on X. Who's everyone's favorite Philly ever? And Ruben can't say his dad. Dylan made sure to point out. Well, that goes without saying. Ruben's favorite Philly is his dad, of course. Why wouldn't it be? But who's your number 2, Ruben? If you had to pick.
I'd have to say Mike Schmidt. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. But I did have a lot of favorites. I mean, I think about some of my favorite players that I'll name a few of them. Shake and Bake McBride back in the day, man. I just love Shake and Bake. I just loved him. Loved his whole setup, the way he swung.
Yeah.
I would have to say that Chooch was one of my favorite Phillies when I was in the front office, just as a person, and then Chase Utley and Roy Halladay. I mean, it's hard for me not to. I don't want to sound like a homer or whatever, but those two people were special. Jimmy Rollins, just a special guy. I mean, it's hard for me because there's so many wonderful people. I mean, Jim Thome, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He played for the Phillies, and was a teammate of mine with the Cleveland Indians. So I mean, it's just so hard for me. There's so many of them. I just put them all up there and blanket them and tell people these are just the greatest players and greatest people, man. I've been really blessed to be around those guys.
Yeah. It's tough, Jim. What do you got?
I could not name one. There's no way.
You could name 50 guys that you like.
Name
covering,
100.
right?
Yeah. I could name the guys I didn't like covering on one hand, and the guys I loved covering on 100 hands.
Jim, who are those players? Let's go now.
Let's go.
Let's start nuking some guys.
Yeah, I loved covering. I don't even want to name anybody because I had so many favorites. I mean, this week it's relevant and topical. Billy Wagner, and I loved covering Jimmy Rollins because I thought he did great things on the field and said interesting things after the game. The same with Curt Schilling, but I mean, Jim Thome, you're blessed to know him, and just so many others. Michael Franco, I loved Michael Franco. He made me laugh, and
He was good.
Just from role players to superstars. Roy Halladay it was like a privilege to cover to watch him go about his work, and Chase the same way, and Ryan Howard. And
I didn't mention Ryan Howard. That now in retrospect, I mean, what a great, just not a great player, but a great human being.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about really, really great human beings, man. I mean, there were no assholes here. These were super people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many of them.
I mean, how
Andres
many times?
Blanco. I mean, I feel like now I'm naming guys, and I'm gonna, I just saw Jared Eichhoff the other day. What a great man.
Oh
Awesome.
my gosh! Yeah, yeah.
Too many to name, and I hope I opened a can of worms. But honestly, so many great people and athletes. It's been a privilege to watch them.
Yeah, I think for at least for certainly for me and Jim. Well, I mean Ruben as well. You played with some of these guys. You signed some of these guys, traded for some of these guys. It's also the personal interactions that you have with them. So I mean, the guy that comes to the top of the list we had on the show last summer is Jeff Francoeur. I love covering Francoeur. He was here for 1 year on a really bad team. But man, was he just a tremendous person. He still is a tremendous person. He just great guy to talk to. Was then, is now. Yeah, I think of all those guys. Chooch. I mean, what a great guy to talk to. You see him. You could joke around with you. Shane Victorino, all those guys, right? Shane Victorino. Jason Worth. I love to cover. And then a guy like Whitey Blanco. He's not a guy that's going to be on top of mind of most Phillies fans in terms of guys you remember necessarily, but. Man, he was a tremendous guy to cover. Freddie Galvis, I love covering. He was a great guy.
Awesome.
Freddie was great. I mean, guy that was on just bad teams, but man, that guy wanted to win, and just such a pro, and just such a great, pure baseball player. So there's, we could go on and on and on. But you're right, Jim. Like you think about, you can put on one hand the guys you're like, I wish that guy was the worst. And I'm not going to name those guys, but. Most guys were just really good people, and I think that kind of goes into how we view those.
When Victorino finished his career with the Red Sox, my nephew, who's a big Red Sox fan, lives in New England. He's like, I really love that Victorino. I was up there one day in the winter. I really love that Victorino guy. He's a great dude. So I reached down to my cell phone and I clicked Victorino's number, and he picks up. And I'm like, Shane, say hi to my nephew. He's a big fan of yours. It's happening like within 4 seconds, and it's just, great dude.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of guys that would do that type of thing, So, there we go. Eagles Next 2 weeks, we're gonna still talk some baseball though. We have some, we're gonna be talking Phillies later this week. Next week, we'll be talking Super Bowl. Hopefully, a Super Bowl win, and then 3 days after the Super Bowl win, Phillies pitchers and catchers report and have their first workout in Clearwater, Florida, on February 12th. So, keep coming back to the Phillies show, folks. Can I say go Birds? Go Birds?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Say
right.
anything you want. It's a Todd Pod.
that's right.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Smell you later, boys.
It's made you.
The Philly Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to The Philly Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, give us a review. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and Threads. Find Ruben's analysis before, during, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Find Jim at allphly.com. Find me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and MLB Network.